Kyoto, 21st of June, 1582. Dawn breaks over Honnoji Temple. Inside, a man stands alone, 47 years old, 2 days from his 48th birthday, the most powerful man in Japan. Surrounded, 13,000 soldiers, his own general leading them, Akechi Mitsuhide, a man he trusted for over a decade, a man he rewarded with provinces, a man he elevated from obscurity to command, now leading an army. Against him, Nobunaga has 150 men, his personal guard. That's all. The rest of his armies are scattered across Japan. Hideyoshi in the west, besieging castles, his son Nobutada 1 kilometer away at Nijo Palace. The bulk of his forces deployed in campaigns from Hokuriku to Shikoku. He is alone. The smoke rises, black and red against the morning sky. Kyoto, 30,000 people living in the capital. They watch the sky turn crimson. They know what's happening. Everyone knows. The demon king of the sixth heaven is finally facing his judgment. This is not how legends are supposed to end. Betrayed by one of his own, trapped in a temple with no army to save him, no miraculous escape, no last-minute reinforcement. But then, this man was never supposed to become a legend at all. They called him a fool. Owari no Outsuke, the Great Fool of Owari, the village idiot, the embarrassment of his family, the boy who would destroy the Oda clan through sheer incompetence. At 13, while other samurai sons trained in martial arts and studied military strategy, he wore women's clothing to taverns, danced with peasants, sang bawdy songs. At 15, he ate persimmons while riding his horse backwards through the streets of Nagoya Castle Town, his kimono tied with hemp rope instead of proper silk sashes, his hair wild and unkempt. At 17, he threw sacred incense at his father's funeral, in front of the entire clan, in front of Buddhist monks, in front of everyone who mattered, the ultimate act of disrespect. His own mother took his younger brother's side, called Nobunaga unfit to rule. Even his father's most loyal vassals whispered that the clan would be better off if Nobunaga simply disappeared. And yet, this fool defeated 25,000 warriors with 3,000. At the Battle of Okahazama in 1560, he achieved what military historians still call one of the most improbable victories in history, a 10-to-1 disadvantage, and he won. This fool revolutionized Japanese warfare at age 15. While everyone dismissed firearms as dishonorable foreign toys, he ordered 500 arquebuses and began experimenting with tactics that would change combat forever. This fool came within months of unifying all of Japan, from 1 province to 30 provinces in 31 years, an expansion of 3,000%, controlling half the country, making the emperor himself offer him any position he desired: shogun, regent, grand minister. Take your pick. How? This is not a story about military genius. Not really. It's not about tactics or strategies or battles won. This is a story about transformation, about a boy who learned that mockery can become fuel, that being underestimated is the ultimate weapon, that reputation is a tool you control, not a prison that controls you. It's about a man who understood that to change a nation, you must be willing to destroy everything that came before: traditions, temples, sacred institutions, even yourself. But it's also a story about cost, because the man burning in Honnoji Temple tonight, the man Japan called the Demon King, he paid for his power, with 20,000 lives burned alive at Nagashima, with 3,000 monks massacred at Mount Hiei, with temples reduced to ash and ancient traditions shattered. He paid with his brother, assassinated by his order, with his humanity, lost somewhere between political necessity and personal ambition, with the trust of everyone around him, until finally, inevitably, one of his own generals decided that enough was enough. This is the story of Oda Nobunaga, the fool who became a king, the king who became a demon, the demon who almost united Japan, a man who changed history and was destroyed by the very ruthlessness that made him powerful. Owari Province, 1534. A minor domain in central Japan. Nothing special, not wealthy, not strategically critical. Just one of many small territories in a country that has been tearing itself apart for over a century. The Oda clan controls it, barely. They're vassals to a larger clan, the Shiba. They have ambitions to become independent, to expand, to matter. But they're constrained, limited, vulnerable. Oda Nobunaga is the current lord, a competent warrior, decent administrator. He understands the game of alliances and betrayals that defines the Sengoku period, Japan's age of warring states. He's fought battles, won some, lost some, survived. That's the best you can hope for in 1534, and on June 23rd, his second son is born, Nobunaga. The name means the one who brings order to the country, an aspirational name, a name full of hope. The boy grows up strange, while his older brother Nobuhiro and younger brother Nobuyuki follow the expected path of samurai education, rigorous training, respectful behavior. Nobunaga does the opposite of everything expected. At age 7, he's already showing signs, refusing to sit still during lessons, running off to watch construction workers and merchants instead of studying military texts. His tutors complain. His father ignores it. Boys will be boys. By age 13, it's no longer ignorable. He rides his horse backwards through the crowded streets, not as a joke, not once, regularly, making a spectacle of himself, eating melons and persimmons as he goes, juice running down his chin, his kimono worn without sleeves, tied with rough hemp rope like a peasant, his 2 swords dangling improperly from his belt. People stare. The vassals complain to Nobuhiro. This is the heir. This is who will lead the clan. At night, Nobunaga disappears into the lower town, the entertainment district, the places where respectable samurai sons should never go. He drinks with peasants, gambles with merchants, dances, sometimes in women's clothing, to the scandal of anyone who sees him. He associates with people beneath his station, woodworkers, blacksmiths, even eta, the outcasts who handle dead bodies and leather. He doesn't care about social boundaries, doesn't care what anyone thinks. The vassals have a name for him now. Owari no Otsuke, the Great Fool of Owari. They say it when they think he can't hear. Sometimes they say it when they know he can. His father tries everything. Punishment, rewards, reasoning. Nothing works, so he brings in Hirate Masahide, a wise man, a scholar and warrior both, patient, kind, disciplined, the kind of mentor who can shape wild spirits into leaders. Hirate sees something in Nobunaga that others don't. Intelligence, curiosity, a mind that works differently. He tries to channel it, guide it, transform the chaos into purpose, but Nobunaga doesn't change. If anything, he gets worse. The behavior escalates, more public, more outrageous, as if he's testing everyone around him to see how far he can push before someone stops him. Nobody stops him. His older brother Nobuhiro dies in 1549. Suddenly, Nobunaga is the heir. The fool is now first in line to lead the clan. The vassals are horrified. 1551. Oda Nobunaga, Lord of Owari, dies of illness. He's 51 years old. He spent his life trying to elevate the Oda clan, expand their territory, secure their independence from the Shiba overlords. He's partially succeeded. Now he's dead, and his heir is the fool. The funeral is everything. In samurai culture, funerals are not just about honoring the dead. They're about demonstrating legitimacy, showing that you understand tradition, proving you're worthy to inherit. The ceremony is held at Bonshoji Temple. All the vassals attend, the Buddhist monks, the allied clans, everyone who matters in Owari province, everyone who will decide whether to support Nobunaga or support someone else. It's Nobunaga's moment to prove himself, to show that beneath the bizarre behavior, there's a real leader, someone capable of following protocol, someone who understands what's expected. He arrives late, not fashionably late, not strategically late, just late, as if he forgot or didn't care. His hair is disheveled, uncombed. His clothes are informal, not the proper mourning attire. His hakama trousers are dusty, and his swords, the symbol of samurai status, are tied to his waist with a common rope, not a proper sword belt. Rope, like a peasant carrying tools. The temple falls completely silent. Every eye in the room turns to watch him. The vassals, the monks, his own family, they're all thinking the same thing. This cannot be happening. Nobunaga walks to the altar. The Buddhist monks have prepared the ceremonial incense. You're supposed to take it reverently, bow, place it gently in the burner, while offering prayers for your father's journey to the next life. It's the most important ritual act a son can perform. Nobunaga takes the incense and throws it, not drops it, not fumbles it, throws it, hard, at his father's memorial tablet. The incense burner shatters, ashes scatter across the altar. The memorial tablet rocks backward. Then he turns, doesn't bow, doesn't pray, doesn't acknowledge anyone, just turns and walks out of the temple. The door slams behind him. For maybe 10 seconds, nobody moves, nobody breathes, nobody can process what just happened. Then the temple erupts. Outrage, shock, betrayal. How dare he? The disrespect, the insult to his father's memory, to the Buddha, to everyone present. His younger brother Nobuyuki is there, gentle, well-mannered, everything Nobunaga is not. Nobuyuki approaches the altar, performs the ceremony perfectly. His movements are precise, respectful, exactly as tradition demands. Everyone watches him, and they think, why couldn't Nobuhide have made him the heir? Why are we stuck with the fool? That night, in private meetings across Owari province, the vassals make their decision. The fool cannot lead. He will destroy the clan. We must act. Support Nobuyuki, the legitimate brother, the capable brother. Civil war is coming. Everyone knows it. It's only a matter of time. And Nobunaga, wherever he is that night, the fool who just threw incense at his father's funeral, he knows it too. 1553. 2 years after Nobuhide's funeral. 2 years after the incident with the incense. Hirate Masahide sits alone in his residence. He's 56 years old, a veteran of dozens of campaigns, a scholar who can quote Chinese classics from memory, a mentor to the young lord of Owari. And he has failed. For 7 years he's tried to guide Nobunaga, tried to see past the bizarre behavior to whatever potential might lie beneath. He believed, truly believed, that there was something extraordinary in that strange boy, an intelligence, a vision, something worth nurturing. But the behavior hasn't stopped. It's gotten worse, more public, more outrageous, more damaging to the clan's reputation. The vassals mock Nobunaga openly now. They call him the fool to his face. Some have already approached Nobuyuki, offering their support when the inevitable conflict comes. The clan is fracturing, civil war is coming, and Hirate knows that when it does, many good men will die, all because he failed to shape Nobunaga into a proper leader. The shame is unbearable. In samurai culture there's a tradition. When a retainer's lord goes astray, when all other methods of correction have failed, there's one final option, kanshi, remonstration through death. You commit seppuku to shock your lord into changing. Your blood becomes your final lesson. Hirate writes a letter, not a long one, just a few lines, to Nobunaga, the young lord he served for 7 years, the boy he believed in when no one else did. The letter doesn't contain anger or disappointment. It doesn't list failures or offer advice. It asks a single question, what are you? Then Hirate Masahide prepares for seppuku. The ritual is performed correctly, precisely, with all the dignity and control that he tried to teach Nobunaga. His second, his Kaisha Kunin, strikes cleanly. It's over quickly. News reaches Nobunaga within hours. They say he receives Hirate's letter, reads it alone in his chambers. They say his hands shake, that for the first time anyone can remember. The mask of the fool drops completely. What happens next is documented. Nobunaga orders the construction of a temple, Seishuji, in Hirate's honor. He personally oversees the design, ensures it's done properly, respectfully, according to all traditions he supposedly doesn't care about. And every year for the rest of his life, on the anniversary of Hirate's death, Nobunaga visits that temple, alone. No attendants, no witnesses, just him and the memory of the one man who believed in him. What did that letter say? What was the question that changed him? No one knows for certain. The letter was private, Hirate's final message to Nobunaga alone. But something shifted in that moment, something fundamental. The fool didn't disappear overnight. The bizarre behavior continued. But underneath it something was different. There was purpose now, direction, as if Hirate's death had finally crystallized what Nobunaga was actually doing. But here's the thing. Before Hirate's death, before the funeral incident, before most people were even paying attention to the Fool of Owari, something else happened. something that reveals the performance was always calculated. 1549, 4 years before Hirata's suicide, 2 years before Nobuhide's death, Portuguese traders arrive on the island of Tanegashima in southern Japan. They bring gifts for the local lord. One of those gifts is an arquebus, a matchlock firearm. It's the first gun Japan has ever seen. The Portuguese demonstrate it. Load the powder, insert the ball, light the match, aim at a target 50 meters away. The noise is deafening, the smoke is thick, and the target, a wooden board, shatters. News spreads across Japan. Within months, every daimyo has heard about these foreign weapons. Most dismiss them immediately. Too loud, you can't achieve surprise. Too slow to reload. A skilled archer can fire 6 arrows in the time it takes to reload once. Too unreliable. Rain makes the matchlock useless. And most importantly, dishonorable. A samurai fights face to face, with skill, with courage, not by pointing a tube and pulling a trigger from a safe distance. Where's the honor in that? Where's the test of character? The few daimyo who do buy firearms treat them as curiosities, novelties. They keep a handful for demonstration purposes. Look at this strange foreign weapon. Interesting, isn't it? Now let's talk about real warfare. 15-year-old Nobunaga, the boy eating melons on his backwards horse, the boy everyone dismisses as a fool. He orders 500 arquebuses. 500. That's not curiosity. That's not novelty collection. That's a military decision. That's someone who looked at a new technology and immediately understood its potential while everyone else was worried about tradition and honor. His father's advisors are appalled. Do you have any idea how much those cost? 500 firearms could buy a province's worth of samurai equipment. Proper equipment, swords, armor, horses. Nobunaga doesn't care. He orders them anyway, and he doesn't just collect them. He studies them, experiments with them, drills his men in their use, thinks about tactics, about formations, about how to maximize their effectiveness. At age 15, while everyone watches him ride backwards eating fruit, he's revolutionizing warfare. While they laugh at his hemp rope belt, he's building the foundation for victories that will come. Who was this boy? Looking back now, with the benefit of hindsight, it becomes obvious. Nobunaga wasn't insane. He was performing. Every bizarre act, every scandal, every public offense, it was theater. A carefully crafted persona, designed to make people underestimate him. Think about it. In the Sengoku period, Japan's age of warring states, everyone watches everyone. Every daimyo has spies in every other daimyo's court. Every action is analyzed for strategic significance. Every appointment, every marriage, every military exercise is scrutinized for what it reveals about intentions and capabilities. Being visible as a threat means becoming a target. The rising star gets crushed by coalitions. The ambitious lord faces preemptive attacks. Everyone who shows potential becomes someone that everyone else wants to eliminate before they become too dangerous. But a fool? Nobody watches a fool. Nobody fears him. Nobody forms coalitions against him. Nobody attacks preemptively. A fool is dismissed, ignored, left alone, and while everyone's ignoring you, you can prepare, study, build, innovate, without anyone paying attention. The backwards horse riding, the tavern dancing, the hemp rope belt, it was all camouflage, strategic incompetence, making himself invisible through absurdity. And underneath that performance, Nobunaga was watching, learning, understanding his enemy's weaknesses, their habits, their assumptions, their blind spots. He studied warfare while they thought he was playing. He built networks while they thought he was socializing inappropriately. He experimented with firearms while they laughed at his foreign toys. The genius wasn't just in the performance, it was in knowing when to drop it. And when Hirate died, when that letter arrived asking "What are you?" maybe Nobunaga realized something, that the performance had served its purpose, that he'd learned what he needed to learn, that he'd built what he needed to build. The fool could step aside. The real Nobunaga could step forward. 1556. 3 years after Hirate's death. 5 years after the funeral incident. The civil war finally comes. 8 of the Oda clan's most powerful vassals, led by Shibata Katsui and Hayashi Hudisada, openly declare for Nobuyuki, the gentle brother, the proper heir, the one who follows tradition and shows respect. Their reasoning is clear. Nobunaga is unpredictable, unreliable, dangerous to the clan's stability. Under his leadership, they'll lose allies, make enemies, eventually be destroyed. Better to act now. Install Nobuyuki, secure the clan's future. And then there's Nobunaga's mother, Tsuchida Gozen. She actively sides with Nobuyuki, her own son, her firstborn after Nobuhiro's death. She publicly declares that Nobuyuki should be lord. Imagine that moment. Your mother choosing your younger brother over you. Not quietly, not reluctantly, but openly, publicly, telling the whole clan that you're unfit and he's worthy, because you're too embarrassing, too strange, too impossible to control. The Battle of Ino, August 1556. Nobunaga's forces are outnumbered. The rebel vassals have more men, more resources, more experience. On paper they should win, but Nobunaga doesn't fight on paper. He attacks at dawn, before the rebels expect it, before they're fully prepared. His forces hit hard and fast, aggressive, unpredictable. All the traits that made him seem insane in peacetime become devastating in war. Speed over strength, surprise over strategy, chaos over control. The same qualities the vassals feared make him unstoppable. The Battle of Ino ends in hours. The rebels break, scatter, some flee, some surrender. Shibata Katsui, one of the rebellion's leaders, is captured. By all rights he should be executed. Treason demands death. Nobunaga spares him, not out of mercy, out of calculation. Katsui is capable, experienced, useful, and now he owes Nobunaga his life. Years later, Katsui will become one of Nobunaga's most effective generals, the traitor transformed into the loyalist, because Nobunaga understood that broken enemies can become devoted allies. But there's a problem. Nobuyuki, the gentle brother, survives, and Nobunaga's mother begs for mercy. Please, spare your brother. He was misled, manipulated. It won't happen again. Nobunaga looks at his mother, the woman who chose Nobuyuki over him, who publicly declared him unfit, and he grants mercy. Nobuyuki is allowed to keep his holdings, his position, his life, but Nobunaga doesn't forget. 1557, 1 year after the Battle of Ino, Nobuyuki plots again, this time more carefully, more secretly. But Nobunaga has informants now, people loyal to him specifically, people who tell him things. He learns that Nobuyuki is planning another rebellion, gathering support, making promises, preparing to strike when the moment is right. This time, Nobunaga doesn't wait for the battle. He sends a message to Nobuyuki. I'm ill, seriously ill. Please come visit me at Kyosu Castle. I want to see my brother. It's an obvious trap. Everyone around Nobuyuki tells him not to go. This is too convenient, too suspicious. He's luring you in to kill you. But Nobuyuki can't refuse. If he doesn't go, it proves he was plotting. It gives Nobunaga justification for action. And maybe, just maybe, Nobunaga really is ill. Maybe this is a genuine reconciliation. Nobuyuki goes to Kyosu Castle. He never leaves. The details are unclear. Some accounts say he was killed immediately upon arrival. Others say there was a brief meeting first, a conversation, maybe even an explanation. But the result is the same. Nobuyuki dies, assassinated, by direct order of his own brother. When news spreads, there's shock, but it's muted, expected. Everyone knew this was coming eventually. The gentle brother was never going to survive, not with the fool on the throne. Nobunaga's mother is devastated. Both her sons, in a sense, lost to her. One dead, one transformed into something she doesn't recognize. But Nobunaga has secured his position. The last legitimate rival is gone. The vassals who supported Nobuyuki now have no choice but to submit to Nobunaga, or flee, or die. The Fool of Owari has learned the first rule of power. Mercy is a luxury, something you grant when it serves your purpose, when it transforms enemies into allies, like with Katsui. But when mercy is dangerous, when it allows threats to persist, you eliminate them, without hesitation, without sentiment. And family is just another category of potential enemy. More dangerous actually, because people assume family loyalty, because succession disputes tear clans apart, so you handle family the same way you handle anyone else, strategically, Coldly, based on threat assessment, not blood relations. Nobunaga is 23 years old. He survived his father's death, his mentor's suicide, a civil war, family betrayal, attempted coups, and he's come out stronger, more secure, more dangerous. The performance of the fool is over. What emerges now is something else entirely, something that will change Japan forever. 1560. Everything changes. Imagawa Yoshimoto, one of the most powerful daimyo in Japan, perhaps the most powerful. He controls 3 provinces, Suruga, Totomi, Mikawa. His territory stretches along the Tokaido Road, the main artery connecting eastern and western Japan. He commands vast wealth, armies that number in the tens of thousands, alliances with other powerful clans, and now, he's marching on Kyoto, the capital, the seat of the emperor, the symbolic heart of Japan. Whoever controls Kyoto controls legitimacy, the right to rule, the mandate of heaven. Imagawa marches with 25,000 men. It's the largest army anyone has assembled in years, a force that could sweep aside any resistance, that could unite Japan under Imagawa rule. But there's a problem. Owari province lies in his path, and Owari belongs to Nobunaga. Nobunaga's advisors panic when the news arrives. 25,000 men, marching directly toward them. Submit, negotiate, flee, abandon the province, save what you can. Imagawa is unstoppable. Fighting him would be suicide, madness. Nobunaga says nothing. He sits in his chamber at Kiyosu Castle, listening to his advisors argue, watching them spiral into fear, and he says nothing. The night before battle, Nobunaga has 3,000 warriors, maybe 3,500, if he counts every farmer who can hold a spear. Imagawa has 25,000, professional soldiers, veterans, men who fought for years, 10 to 1, maybe worse. His generals beg him to reconsider. This isn't war, this is suicide. This is throwing away everything he's built, everything he's survived. For what? Pride, stubbornness. There are other options. Negotiate, offer tribute, become Imagawa's vassal, live to fight another day. Nobunaga performs a dance. It's late evening, the castle is quiet, and Nobunaga stands and begins to move. Atsumori, a traditional piece, something from the No theater. Ancient, melancholic. It's about mortality, impermanence, the briefness of life. His generals watch in confusion, in horror. We're about to die tomorrow, and he's dancing. Nobunaga sings the words as he moves. A person's life is merely 50 years. His voice is clear, steady. Compared to the age of the world, it is but a dream and an illusion. The dance continues. Slow, deliberate, beautiful. Is there anything that lasts forever? Then he stops, puts on his armor, piece by piece, methodically, takes his sword, and marches to war, without explaining, without justifying, without reassuring anyone. Just movement, action, decision. June 19th, 1560. Dawn breaks over Owari province, the Battle of Okahazama. Imagawa's army is massive, a serpent of men stretching for miles along the road. Supply wagons, cavalry, infantry, siege equipment. It takes hours for them to pass any single point. Nobunaga doesn't meet Imagawa head-on. That would be suicide. A frontal assault against 10 to 1 odds. Even Nobunaga isn't that insane. Instead, he creates an illusion. Straw dummies, thousands of them. His men spend the night constructing them, dressing them in armor, positioning them along the ridges overlooking the road. From a distance, they look like soldiers, an army, watching, waiting. Imagawa's scouts ride ahead. They see the dummies on the ridge. Report back. Nobunaga has forces positioned along the heights, thousands of men. Imagawa's generals recommend caution. This could be an ambush. We should probe their positions, test their strength. But Imagawa is confident, arrogant even. This is Nobunaga, the fool of Owari, the boy who rode backwards eating melons, who danced at funerals. He's bluffing, trying to look stronger than he is. Typical desperate tactics. Imagawa stops to rest in a narrow gorge. Okehazama, a perfect spot, shelter from the sun, fresh water nearby. His army spreads out, relaxes. They've been marching for days. They deserve rest. Exactly where Nobunaga wanted him. Then the sky opens. A sudden storm, summer weather, unpredictable, heavy rain, thunder, lightning. Within minutes, visibility drops to almost nothing. The rain is deafening. You can barely see 10 meters ahead. And Nobunaga attacks. 3,000 warriors, crashing down from the heights, into the heart of Imagawa's camp. No formation, no careful strategy, just pure controlled violence. The rain hides them, muffles the sound of their approach. By the time Imagawa's men realize they're under attack, Nobunaga's forces are already among them. The gorge traps the enemy. There's no room to maneuver, no space to form proper defensive lines. Imagawa's numerical advantage becomes meaningless. You can't use 10,000 men in a space designed for 1,000. Chaos erupts. Imagawa's soldiers panic, slip in the mud, collide with each other. Where's the attack coming from? How many enemies? What's happening? Nobunaga's men know exactly what they're doing. They've drilled for this, practiced fighting in tight spaces, in chaos. They move through Imagawa's camp like a knife through silk. Imagawa Yoshimoto, the great lord, realizes too late what's happening. This isn't a skirmish. This isn't a raid. This is an assassination. Two of Nobunaga's samurai find him, Mori Shinsuke and Hattori Koheta. They fight through his personal guards, cut them down, and kill Imagawa Yoshimoto. Decapitation, the traditional way, the honorable way. Ironically, Mori Shinsuke holds the head high, rain streaming down, blood mixing with water. Imagawa is dead. The cry spreads through the camp. Imagawa's army sees their lord, their commander, dead, and they break. 25,000 men flee, from 3,000. They abandon their weapons, their supplies, their wounded, everything. They just run. News spreads across Japan like wildfire. The Fool of Owari has achieved the impossible. 10-to-1 odds, and he won. More than won. He destroyed them, killed their leader, sent their army fleeing in terror. How? People try to explain it. Luck. The storm was fortune, divine intervention. But those who understand warfare, who study tactics and strategy, they see something else. The dummies, the gorge, the timing of the attack, the exploitation of weather. This wasn't luck. This was genius. Nobunaga revealed something at Okehazama. The old rules don't apply anymore. Honor, tradition, fair combat, meeting your enemy face to face on an open field. All of it meaningless. Only results matter. Victory matters. Survival matters. Everything else is decoration, theater, illusion. And Nobunaga, the boy they called insane, he gets results. From this moment, the fool is dead. The performance is over. And in his place stands something new, something dangerous, something that will change Japan forever. The Demon King is born. Some men seek to win a battle, others to conquer a province. But Nobunaga, he sought the world itself, and his declaration had just been made. Subscribe for the next episode.